exactly.
That displaces everybody who is living in a coastal area.
Yes,
including
true.
the fishermen, business, everything.
3, 2, 1, take.
Hello and welcome to this issue of Point Counterpoint. What we are going to discuss over the course of the next 1 hour is an issue that concerns everybody in Goa, especially people who live in the coastal areas. You see, the thing is, the major ports bill was converted into an act sometime in September 2020 in the Lok Sabha, and then it was finally passed on February 10th, 2022 in the Rajya Sabha. And obviously, a lot of discussions have happened. The recently concluded assembly elections, in parts, was kind of fought in these issues, though it did not get the pan-Goa traction that it deserved. But what we are here to discuss is that there is one act which is in place right now, which will allow literally a state within a state, and the Murugaon Port Trust, for all practical purposes, will hold sway over large tracts of water, land and villages by virtue of the powers that the Murugaon Ports Authority gets under the aegis of this particular act. Not only that, we will also look at the larger issues of how the public discourse over this has panned out, and the feelings of the people and the way the people are still fighting on this. And what is also going to be looked at is the alleged lack of effort, and one would say that we are leaning more towards the side of the people who are making these allegations, that the elected representatives, our MPs and others who had a voice, fell short when it came to opposing this particular bill in Parliament and thereafter. And also at the same time, the elected government of Goa, both the previous one and this one has of course just come in, have a lot of answers to questions that we are going to raise. With me is a very eminent panel of grassroots street fighters who've raised these issues at various forums and fought and are still fighting. On my left is Shankar Polji, of the executive member of the Goencho High Court, an organization which has really got people together to fight on a lot of issues of land, water and environment in Goa. Valenzo Simões of the National Fish Workers Forum, of course, he is also with the GRE, wore a political hat, but above all, a person from those areas, yet again fighting for Goa's land, water, identity and so on and so forth. And finally, we have Roshan Matthias of the Goencho Avaz, again a very strong street fighter based in the north of Goa from the Kalangud belt, and has fought on illegalities on every front. Before I go on any further, I would also like to point out that there should have ideally been one more person sitting there, one space which is vacant, and that should have been a representative from the government. We reached out to several people. We reached out to the Pollution Control Board, we reached out to the Secretary Environment, we reached out to the Director Environment, we reached out even to CZMP members. All of them refused on some pretext or the other. The government people said we are just not allowed to talk on television on this particular issue. The Secretary Environment backed out. The Pollution Control Board representative backed out, saying I want to come but I'm not being allowed to come by the government. So I think before we start this debate, I really want to park this thought that how can we have meaningful discussions, how can we have a holistic conversation if the so-called other side, it should not be the other side, it should actually be on the side of the people. But if the government and authorities need to use these opportunities and engage in discussions like this so that the other side does come out, because at the end of the day they are also elected to serve the people whom the three panelists here are fighting for as well. So I think it's very, very important, and this message should go out to the government that this whole rule of secretaries and other people and directors not participating in debates like this, what really happens is that the government does not get a chance to put its point of view. And that is a gap, because at the end of the day, I won't say the debate gets skewed, but what happens is the fact that the government is not listening, that narrative gets strengthened if the government does not speak often enough. Having said that, I'll start with the major ports authority, which is now being constituted. Just to, I will get into it a little later, but I'll start with, say, Roshan there. And Roshan, just tell us a little bit about the issues that I have just raised, And why does the Major Ports Authority, why is it being seen as the proverbial last nail in Goa's environment coffin?
First and foremost, thank you for having me on this valuable
Welcome.
debate,
Welcome.
and which is open to the people of Goa and the world at large. And when you spoke about the government trying to give excuses, it took my memory back to the CZMP public hearings that happened, if you remember. How we were called to Kala Academy and Ravindra Bhavan in the south, and the officials were just sitting mum at the on the stage, and then they organized it again in the at Kampal, and nobody spoke to us. It was supposed to be a public hearing. We spoke and we went back home, and this is the same silly, stupid attitude which they carry on. The good part is that we have active citizens like us who are here, and a lot of other people in Goa who finally meet these government officials in courts. And that is where justice has been seen in many of these cases, where justice has knocked down these lies, have knocked down these hidden agendas of this government. And that is where we still continue to hold our hope and our faith in the courts. Coming down to MPA, that is the Major Ports Authority Act that got passed. Basically, this fight had started almost 2 years back when the CZMP was being drafted. And the issue then was that this was still in its bill stage. And though it was in the bill stage, it was already depicted in the CZMP. And that was the fight, because we were trying to get this entire bill thrown out from the parliament, hoping that the MPs would have spoken and got this challenged and got it out. And so we didn't want that depiction to happen in the CZMP, because if the bill got challenged and was thrown out, it would be unnecessarily showing on the CZMP map.
Right.
It created confusion. So this was our thing, to get it out from the map and get it out from Goa itself, this entire act. Unfortunately, it turned out into an act, but the depiction has been removed from the CZMP. And I think this is an absolute eyewash to the people of Goa. Though
If you
many
can just tell our viewers before I go to Alencio, because everybody may not be technically equipped with what the CZMP is and how we are linking this to that, because the experts and others will know. Just wanted, for the benefit of say somebody, a young student or somebody who's seeing this for the first time, what exactly would you like to tell him or her as to why did you didn't want the Major Ports Authority to be shown on the CZMP? What does it actually mean in a very layman terms?
Okay. So basically, the CZMP is a plan, is a map that is drawn by the CRZ department, showing the regulated area that comes under their jurisdiction. And the Major Ports Authority, being mainly functional in the water, does affect the CRZ regulated areas. And so these areas of the ports that were being showed in the CZMP were of importance, because the act would have certain implications on these areas within the CRZ, and they needed to be shown in the map.
Right.
So yeah, that's the relation between the CZMP and the MP.
Right. Valencia, just taking off from where Roshan left off, you see, we will go into the MPA later, but he mentioned one point that our elected representatives did not do enough, and I just like to bring a few dates into question here. See, on March 12th, 2020, the Major Ports Bill was introduced in the Lok Sabha. March 12th. September 23rd, 2020, it was passed in the Lok Sabha. We had three MPs from Goa there, one in the Rajya Sabha, two in the Lok Sabha. Not a murmur was made. I do not think that the honorable MPs were even aware of the significance of this and the fact that this could affect Goa, because the Major Ports Authority bill, the bill was not necessary for Goa. It was an all India bill and it covered some ports, and Goa happened to be one of the states whose ports authority was effective. From September 23rd, 2020, to February 10th, 2022, so another say 6 months, the bill was in the Rajya Sabha. Even during that period, nor was any Goan voice heard in the Rajya Sabha. We have a Rajya Sabha MP. Nor did the Lok Sabha MPs, after it passed from the Lok Sabha and when it went to the Rajya Sabha, also did not make any kind of a noise outside Parliament either in the public forum. I'll go through one more date. Mr. Luizin Falero, he asked one legislative assembly question in the last assembly, and the question was, is the government aware that the major ports bill which has been tabled in Parliament, and this was said when it was in the Rajya Sabha, about to be passed, the final stages, has the potential to usurp the powers of the state and the local bodies with regard to land use and town planning? If so, what is the likely implication for the state? The TCP Minister Babu Kavlekar then, his reply was, the likely implication includes redundancy of the Goa Town and Country Planning Act and the Regional Plan, ODPs, Goa Municipalities Act, Goa Panchayati Raj Act, Goa Land Development and Building Construction Regulations, and Land Revenue Code and Code in the area under the port limits. With absolute humble respect with the then Honourable Minister, one suspects that he perhaps don't even understand the ramifications of what his own answer was. Okay? He actually said that the laws that govern how land is to be issued under his department will no longer be valid in the whole ports area. Well, let's say your quick response to this and other issues that we've raised.
Yes, quickly, first of all, how systematically is the state government and the central government plans to displace all the coastal communities across Goa and India? If you go step by step, Sagarmala was introduced 2015. Then you see the National Waterways Act 2016, where 111 rivers, 6 rivers of Goa were included, nationalized. Then comes the CRZ notification, where 500 will come to 50. Then comes another amendment of CRZ. Then comes the Major Port Authority Bill 2021. Now, if you see what I think Babu Kavlekar said, definitely what he said is absolutely correct.
Absolutely.
That is exactly what the bill is talking about.
Right.
The Major Port Trust Act 1963 was replaced by this authority bill.
That's right.
Here now the authority gets the absolute authority on the jurisdiction of the port, which initially was 63 kilometers, including land. Now, if you see under the CZMP, which actually is what is going to happen, that the entire coastline, 105 kilometers, all the rivers of Goa, 11 rivers, plus the some areas up to 500 meters, and Murmugao Taluka, if you see, the entire Taluka itself is mostly under the port limits, like Sada and all that area. So now here, if you go to the sections, if you see the sections of the
no, on what, just to make it clear to the viewers, on what basis are you calculating the 105 kilometers and the 11 rivers being under the authority? On what basis?
Because the CZMP plan clearly depicted the port limits.
Okay, the earlier
one.
Correct.
Now they have said they have dropped.
Right.
But the fact remains is, now the jurisdiction will get extended to all these areas.
Right.
Okay, so basically it's very simple that this has to be privatized so that Sagarmala plans have been implemented. That's why the CRZ also is being downloaded. The latest amendment also comes now in dilution of oil, natural gas exploration and all these things.
Right.
So here the government has made it very clear that today the coast does not belong to the people anymore. They want to now make it into a highly economic sector. So they plan to sell the entire area. We have seen in Naushi how the port have sold it to this marina there.
Right.
They have leased the water area for almost 8 to 12 rupees.
Right.
And now the same will go to the rest of Goa.
Right.
Which means any fisherman or any tourism activities or any person wants to use the water area or the land area will have to buy this area on lease.
Right now, this 105 kilometers, 11 rivers. Now, will the Ports Authority exercise jurisdiction over this?
Absolutely.
Even though it's not in the CZMP.
Even though it's not in the CZMP, this port, that is why what Babu Kavlekar said is absolutely correct. This is like a state within the state. We opposed SEZs in Goa.
Right.
But now the government has bought coastal economic zones in Goa.
Correct.
So this is a part of a coastal economic zone. In this coastal economic zone, you're finishing the CRZ. You're going to finish. You are taking all the rivers. You are taking all the land area, and this is what the future of Goan lies. If the government of the day does not open its eyes, including the MPs of our state, and raise this vociferously, like how state of Kerala and West Bengal have raised objections to this port authority, it will be too late for us to understand the implications of this, and ultimately we are going to be a state of debts, where we are already in debt of so many thousands of crores. We are going to lose tourism, we are going to lose fishing industry in the state of Goa.
Shankar, you've mainly been a street fighter, fighting for people's rights. You've seen the whole thing through people's eyes. Of course, others also have, and you've also done it very strongly. Just the last part of what Olense said, if you can just take that forward, in your entire fight, what do you think will be the loss for the common Goan?
In short, हांव तुमकां सांगूंक सोदतां, आतां तुमी म्हटलें की दॅट चेअर इज फॉर गव्हर्मेंट ऑफिशियल आनी तो येवंक ना म्हणून. ओके, दे वोंट कम, कित्याक तेंचे कडेन आन्सर ना. आनी आयज जे सरकार हे करपाक उठले, आमकां गोंयांत MP सुद्दां सपोर्ट करिना आनी आमचे गोंयचे MLA सुद्दां सपोर्ट करिना. आनी आयज जे हे बॅटल जे आहा हे एक्टिविस्टांनी फुडें हाडलेले आहा. आयज हे सगळे बॅटल एक्टिविस्टांनी फुडें हाडलेले आहा. आतां तुम्ही म्हणटा लॉस, आम्ही एक्चुअली वी विल बी लुजिंग गोवा. इफ सपोज आयज तेंच्यांनी MPA केल्या, तो अथॉरिटीचे मिनींग कितें? अधिकार म्हटल्यार तेंची सायन फायनल अथॉरिटी. तूं आनी फुडें खंय मागीर चॅलेंज करपाक शकना. सो हें आयज जावपाक कित्याक पावलें जाल्यार वीक, आयज जी आमची गोंयची पॉलिटिक्स आहा न्हू, वीक पॉलिटिक्स जाल्लेली आहा आनी पॉलिटिक्स आमची सेंटराकसून डॉमिनेट जाता. हे जे आमचे MP आहा, आमी वेल क्वॉलिफायड MP धाडल्या थंयसर, पूण हे थंयसर पार्लमेंटान बसून आमच्या गोंयच्या हितान कांयच उलोवंक सोदिना. दीस वॉज अ मेजर इशू. हो एक अहो मेजर इशू की आमी पयलीं पोर्तुगीजां कडल्यान आमी गोंय वाचयलें आनी आयज इनडायरेक्टली सेंटर आमचें गोंय आमचे कडल्यान काडून घेता कशें. आयज आमचे फिशरमॅन भाव, आयज कोस्टल बेल्ट म्हणटकूच फिशरमॅन येयले. सो फिशरमॅन येयले म्हणटकूच आतां MPT ईच एंड एवरीथींग वील बी आमकां MPT कडेन धांवचें पडलें. आतां रायट, आय स्टे इन वास्को. आतां वास्को जो तेंच्यांनी एक रिस्ट्रिक्शन घातला, नेवी कडल्यान आमकां परमिशनां बीन घेवपाक जाय. अरे आमी आमच्या गोंयांत रावता, PDA इज देर, म्युनिसिपालिटी इज देर, आनी एडिशनल तुमी मागीर नेवी कडल्यान आमकां आनी परमिशन ना म्हटल्यार आमी फक्त ऑफिस टू ऑफिस भोंवत रावपाचें. सो हें जे आयज चल्लां न्हू, जे MPT टू MPA, हे सगळे क्रोनीक कॅपिटलिस्ट आहा न्हू, कितें हें तेंच्या खातीर चल्लां. आमी ओपनली म्हणूंक शकता, कित्याक सांग हांगा गोंयकार बेनिफीट जायना, खंयचोच गोंयकार बेनिफीट जायना. आनी ही MPT आनी MPA जी आहा न्हू, हेणें आमच्या गोंयांक व्हडलोसो रेव्हेन्यू दिवंक ना. I think Mormugao Port Trust was commissioned in 1885 or 87 somewhere. Okay?
Right.
From तेन्नाच्यान आयज मेरेन जर आमचो गोंयचो रेव्हेन्यू चॅक करीत सपोज, व्हडलोसो आमकां रेव्हेन्यू मेळोंक ना. आनी आयज जे मायनींग जालां, हो एक मेजर पॉयंट सारको. आयज MPT जे म्हणटा न्हू की आमी करीत ती पूर्व भाशा, तशें ना. आयज जे मायनींग जालां आनी मायनिंगाचेर एक केस जाल्ली. इनफॅक्ट आमचो पयलींचो CM मनोहर पर्रीकर यांनी एलिगेशन केलेले की 35,000 crores स्कॅम झाला म्हणून. त्याच्या उपरांत त्याचे काय आन्सर येवकूच ना. सो ओर काढलो कोणी? मायन ओनरांनी ओर काढलो. तो एक्सपोर्ट खंयच्यान जालो? पोर्टाच्यान एक्सपोर्ट जालो. सो जर 35,000 crores स्कॅम जाला सपोज, जाल्यार पोर्ट सुद्दां इनवॉल्व आहा भितून. पोर्टाक सुद्दां तेंच्यांनी लायबल धरपाक जाय हेतून. सो हे खंय कांयच हे जावंक ना. आनी आयज जेन्ना आमी इलिगल ड्रेजिंगाचेर पब्लीक हियरींग घेता कितें, आनी खंयचे बाकीचे पोर्ट एक्सपान्शनाचेर पब्लीक हियरींग घेता, त्या टायमाचेर ते पब्लीक हियरिंगाचें आमकां कन्क्लुजन मेळत ना. आतां जे ड्रेजिंग केला ते इलिगल ड्रेजिंग, इट वॉज डन बाय MPT. सो हे सगळे इलिगॅलिटीज MPTन केल्या आनी MPT आयज इनडायरेक्टली दे हॅव बिकम लायक ब्रोकर्स. आमचे जे लँड आहा न्हू, हे क्रॉनिक कॅपिटलिस्ट आहात, कोल माफिया जे आहा, हे यांच्या थ्रू आमचे लँड ग्रॅब करपाक सोदता. कितें, दिस इज द इजिएस्ट वे टू ग्रॅब अवर लँड. कितें म्हाजें म्हणणें जाल्यार हांवें कितें सांग की MPT जे आयज करता हेचेर आमच्या MP MLA BMLA कोण उलयत ना, पूण आयज एक्टिविस्ट खूप बरें काम केलां. कित्याक सांग, एक रिलीफ खंय ती आमकां आतां सेंटराकसून CZMPन तेंकां पोट लिमिटा भायर मारल्या म्हणटा, कित्याक रिलीफ खंय बाकीची, पूण ते कंटिन्यू जातलें हें, कित्याक ते काय स्टॉप जावपाक ना. सो हांगासर एक्चुअली हेचेर खंय ना खंय तरी एक केस फायल करून आमी हे करपाक जाय, आमी कोर्टान अपील करपाक जाय की दिस इज टोटली रॉंग म्हणून MPA जे केला ते. कित्याक आमकां गोंयकारांक काय रायट उरपाक ना हांगा.
Well, it's the thing is what Roshan actually made a very interesting point. Want you to respond to it also, where he said that we end up meeting the government officials in courts. We don't meet them in front of us. They were completely silent when the CZMP hearings were happening. So obviously there has been some kind of a people's fight all the time. But I can't help but ask that during the recently concluded elections, which was a very important, should have been a very important watershed moment to bring these facts forward. Is there a sense of disappointment that obviously there is a large section of people who feel very strongly about it, your groups, your NGOs, your organizations, but do you somewhere lament the fact that somehow these issues don't seem to have reached a greater mass of people to make it electorally significant? Because until and unless a political regime gets shaken through votes, this does not really happen. So is there a lament that maybe somewhere one needs a greater people's participation in it, even beyond what you all have achieved so far?
Yes, because if you see the recent concluded elections, Tree Near project also was one of the
right.
issues prior to this election. And I think if you see the Congress party had taken up this issue and this was one of the main manifesto points scrapping the Tree Near project. Yes, I think somewhere we need to connect to the other sectors of the people, because people, some of them have less awareness about this issue. Now, for example, if you specifically talk about the Murunga Port Trust authority now, it is, if you see the coastal areas, there are almost 60% of the people living in coastal areas.
Right.
So they all are going to get displaced to this for this act.
Correct.
So more awareness, more participation, including political parties, need to go to the people and tell them that this is the issue. See, we only activists or NGOs go to people, have awareness meetings. So we also want political parties to do the same thing when this such type of issues takes place.
Right.
So then everyone will get to know, and it will be a benefit. Ultimately, we are fighting for the interest of the state. So if the interest of the state is lost, and then it cannot be bought back. So it is very important for us and the political parties to take these issues. I'm sure this issue now, the major port trust, will be the issue in the 2024 election, because now the parliament election is coming close, and we strongly demand from our association that this act has to be, the state of Goa has to be withdrawn, MPT has to be withdrawn from this act. This is what we are going to demand from
the MPA, you mean?
The MPA from the political parties.
Yeah. Roshan, a quick final word before we end this segment and get on to other topics. Because essentially, I'll put forward the same question to you that I did to Alencio.
The people of Goa are very simple. Okay, we are engaged in our daily work. Whatever we earn, we sit, we enjoy that, we go to sleep. It repeats the next day. What I have seen in my experience is that there is very less concern for environment. Okay, so when you look at activists and the spread of these kind of awareness, it's very small.
Right.
And as Olencio rightly pointed out, if we want this to reach to every corner of Goa, then every organization, every social organization, every political organization has to come together to bring this topic up in the right way, in the right interest. Okay,
right.
It is not about garnering some votes or etc. It's not about that. Because at the end of it, now you see we have a bigger enemy who's taking advantage of the whole thing. And the enemy, of course, we can name him very clearly. It is the BJP government. Okay, there's nothing to hide from it. They are become mere puppets in the government, including our state government. Now, they fail to understand that today they are thriving on certain ministries, like for example, tourism ministry, the TCP. All these ministries get washed out with things like this. What is the need of having a minister in the TCP when the MPA is going to take control over the decision? What is the need of tourism when everything is going to be ports? So these people don't understand the implication upon themselves and upon the people who put their trust in them. So such kind of politicians should come on board with an open mind, understand the situation and take care of our Goa. Because I'm 100% sure that they also know about all these topics deep down in their heart. It's just that they are toothless or they are helpless and they cannot say anything against their own government. So yes, this awareness has to go to different panchayats, and we are all there. We continue working together, and we also invite political parties to come and understand these issues and take it deeper into the villages.
Quick last question, Shankar. Do you feel that why don't MLAs and other elected representatives who are living with you all, who are working with you all, who are working in areas where these issues are more important than other areas, why do you think they don't seem to be with the people on these issues, if that is true at all?
No, I think they have become selfish.
Why?
Actually पळोवंक वचत जाल्यार आतां जे इश्यूज आहा ते घेवपाक सोदिना कित्याक सांग तांकां खंय ना खंय तरी फ्रॉम बॅक सायड कितें तरी बेनिफीट जाता आसतलें म्हणून आनी व्हडलेशें रिजन कांय ना ताका. आतां जे इश्यूज घेता ते सगळे आमचे एक्टिविस्ट घेता. फॉर एक्झाम्पल 3 लिनियर प्रोजेक्ट मोलेम डिस्ट्रक्शन देन दीस एमपीटी एमपी हे सगळे इश्यूज एक्टिविस्टांनी घेतले, खंयच्या पॉलिटिशियनान कोणें घेवंक ना. सो आयज गरज आहा एक्टिविजम एक डिफरंट लेवलाचेर पावोवपाची, कित्याक सांग एक्टिविस्ट जे आहात न्हू ते गोंय वाचोवपाक शकता, हे पॉलिटिशियन न्हू आमचे. कित्याक पॉलिटिशियनाक जर वाचोवपाचें आसलेलें जाल्यार हेच्या पयलीं ते वाचयतले आसले. आनी आयज जे इवन आतां सुप्रीम कोर्टाचें डिसिजन येयलां की तनमार वायरलायन सुद्दां ते कटिंग ऑफ ट्रीज बीन आहा, हे तेंच्यांनी सारके कमी हे करून धाडले. दॅट इज बिकॉज ऑफ एक्टिविस्ट. बरे जे एक्टिविस्ट आसले जे झगडले कितें तेंचे खातीर हे सगळें. आनी आयज जे गांवांनी जे सगळे अवेरनेस करता हे एक्टिविस्ट करता, खंयचे पॉलिटिशियन करिना आनी खंयचे पॉलिटिशियन सपोर्टूय करिना. सो इन शॉर्ट म्हाका जाल्यार सांगचें दिसता की सांग तेंच्या स्वताच्या आशे खातीर आयज ते गोंय वाचोवपाक सोदिनात.
We will take a short break now. On the other side of the break, we'll come back on a little further discussion. We'll deep dive a little bit into the MPA and to exactly inform how this is going to make the ports as a state within a state. We will also discuss a little bit about activism versus governance. Why are they on two separate sides? Why are activists and the people seen as the other and not as their own? And finally, we will deliberate a little bit more on what our friend Roshan says, that why do we meet our politicians and government more in courts and not with the people? We are much more coming on the other side. Stay with us. Devendra?